You're listening to Skills World Live with Tom Bewick. News, views and interviews in association with FE News.
Hello, I'm Tom Bewick. Welcome to Series 2, Episode 10 of Skills World Live. And in a week when Britain's Chancellor of the Exchequer, affectionately known as Dishy Rishi, laid it all out in very stark terms about the state of the country's economy. The public health emergency may be coming to an end, he said, but the economic emergency is only just beginning. Not since the Great Frost of 1709, when the River Thames froze over, will the wheels of Europe's economic engine have seized up to such an extent that gross domestic product in the UK is projected to slump by 11% this year. Not that the great leader Gavin Williamson was out front much this week, as we saw an autumn flurry of reheated skills announcements in the Treasury's Red Book. No wonder then that speculation is rising in Whitehall that the revolutionary FE White Paper may now get delayed well into the new year, and the Secretary of State for Education may finally get the chance to spend more time with his legendary pet tarantula called Cronus. Apologies there to any arachnophobes amongst you listening in to tonight's satirical monologue. I do promise from now on to keep our focus purely on the work of bipeds. I'm referring there, of course, to our own species of Homo sapiens. Because it's that time of the week again, folks, for your unrivalled instalment of informed chat and topical debate from across the skills ecosystem. And don't think we haven't noticed the pale imitations of our popular podcast show now springing up on the digital airwaves. Even the format of our recent futureofapprenticeships.com conference we see has been used somewhere else. Reminds me of that old saying about copying being the highest form of flattery. Thank you very much. I think we'll take that. Right, let's not waste a digital nanosecond for a moment longer as we power up once again my Skills World Live radio rig and connect the world of FE.
You're listening to the Skills World Live radio show with Tom Bewick.
On tonight's programme, we're dedicating the whole episode to finding out what do college leaders think about the future of FE. It comes hot on the heels of last week's show, which delved into the thoughts of independent training providers. Next week, according to the instructions I receive regularly from the show's editor, Gavin O'Mara, will be taking a deep dive into the familiar world of awarding bodies as we complete this special three-parter exploring what our sector leaders really think. Over the next 60 glorious minutes, you'll hear from some of the most informed people in the field of college governance and policy development. And don't go away, folks, because coming up shortly, we've got a live exclusive interview with the Employment Minister, Mims Davies, MP. She'll make her inaugural appearance on Skills World Live in a week when the government has put aside over £4 billion in a new restart scheme to deal with a dole queue next year that could peak at 2.6 million of our fellow citizens. It comes on top of a kickstart scheme aimed at supporting young people stay in and get back to work. I'll be talking to the Minister about both of these developments this evening. But coming up next, let's find out what's been making the news headlines in your skills world this week. Chancellor of the Exchequer Rishi Sunak has delivered his one-year spending review this week. Against the backdrop of rising government debt, the Treasury confirmed a number of pre-existing skills initiatives that will receive Whitehall cash. They include £1.1 billion to upgrade the college estate, an additional £291 million to fund the expansion of young people going into FE, and £375 million to be spent on fulfilling the Prime Minister's pledge of a lifetime skills guarantee. Sector leaders broadly welcome the investment, although concerns remain about whether short-term measures to managing rising unemployment will eclipse the need for long-term investment in levelling up productivity and skills. In other news, a senior civil servant at the Education Skills Funding Agency told a cross-party committee of MPs earlier today that 64 FE colleges were at risk of running out of money. Appearing in front of the Public Accounts Committee, Matthew Atkinson, who monitors the financial health of the sector for the government, said that more colleges needed cash support due to the impact of COVID than his agency was initially expecting. ESFA Chief Executive Ireland Milner told MPs at the same hearing that the Education Quango would continue to closely monitor college finances. MPs were also informed that the cost of professional consultancy fees to place 2 colleges into administration last year will now reach an eye-watering £6 million of taxpayers' money. And finally, the CoLab group of colleges have published a report this week on how its members can support economic recovery. The report sets out a series of practical recommendations to encourage FE colleges to set up skills and jobs hubs, the development of an enhanced programme offer to deliver on government priorities like Kickstart for young people, and stronger efforts to reach out to local employers to create more job placements.
Contact us at Skills World Live. We want to hear from you. Email skillsworld@fenews.co.uk. Follow us on Twitter at Skills World Live, at Tom Bewick. Use the hashtag Skills World Live. Call us on 02032 900 111. That's 02032 900 111.
One of the things I discovered this week is that the government's chosen name for the new employment scheme, Restart, that it's been used before by a Conservative administration. Some of you may be old enough to remember. Well, it was 1986. Margaret Thatcher was the Prime Minister and unemployment reached 11.4% of the workforce in that year. It was also the year of this chart topper, reaching number 16. Enjoy, talk. Life's what you make it.
Do you need to gain off-call recognition? Does your current IT solution meet new regulatory arrangements and ways of working? Are you wrestling with managing cost and resources while still delivering a high-quality endpoint assessment experience? At Creatio, we can help. We've got more companies through the recognition process than anyone else. Our solution underpins all aspects of a qualifications lifecycle, from development to delivery and assessments to awarding. It's used by more regulated organisations than any other system. Get in touch at creatio.org.uk today.
Welcome back to our first live chat session of the evening. This week saw the Department for Work and Pensions receive a double-digit increase in its baseline funding, 5 times more, in fact, than the Department for Education in cash terms. The Minister now responsible for handling what the Chancellor referred to as the employment part of this pandemic-induced crisis is the Mid-Sussex MP and Department for Work and Pensions Minister, Mims Davies. And she joins us on the line now. Good evening, Minister.
Hi, Tom. Lovely to join you.
Yeah, well, thank you very much indeed. Now, only because I'm broadcasting this online community radio show from the heart of your constituency, I thought I'd ask you about your own career in the audio sector before you entered Parliament. Am I right in thinking you were once a local radio presenter?
Absolutely right. And I'm not too far away from you, if I've got the geography right, in Burgess Hill, so just down the road in my constituency office. But absolutely, for 13 years, I was a self-employed radio presenter, doing a mixture of talk programmes, dance programmes, traffic, weather, reading the news.
Wow.
I was particularly bad at that. But yeah, it was a fantastic range of experiences that I had, and I worked in commercial radio and for the local BBC programme as well. So BBC Southern Counties as it was, but it's now BBC Sussex and Surrey, and I've still got friends there. It's a very, very positive time in my life.
Wow. Well, as a volunteer and obviously a bit of a frustrated drive time radio DJ, I can only dream of getting to the heights of BBC Sussex. But
well, I started on hospital radio, Tom,
right.
And I'm hopefully still going to continue community radio, so I'll come and join you at any time.
Brilliant.
Back in the volunteering world.
Right, well, I'll certainly hold you to a guest slot or two in the future. Now, let's look at the employment programmes that had unprecedented amounts of government support attached to them this week. For our listeners, perhaps, who hear lots of labels for these schemes, like Kickstart, Restart, etc., but don't really fully understand what in practical terms this actually means for young people and adults, can you briefly just sketch out for us then what support is there and indeed will be on offer in the future?
Yeah, Tom, you're absolutely right that the spending review at the heart of it was protecting and supporting employment. And that's why we've had our plan for jobs in place since July. And that's the £30 billion overall package. But we heard more about the Restart programme, which will be starting next summer on top of our current Kickstart programme. So, yeah, if you're a listener, what on earth does that mean? So at the moment, if you are 16 to 25 and on universal credit and likely to be unemployed, there's an opportunity by working with our job centres and our work coaches to move into a Kickstart role. So that's 25 hours a week, subsidised by the government to get that foot onto the employment ladder. Perhaps you've left school or college with maybe a traineeship or apprenticeship or a job lined up and it hasn't worked out. Or indeed, you could be 16 and a care leaver and perhaps you're looking for your first employment opportunity. So we're working with all different organisations, businesses, charities, local councils, our local chambers of commerce. We've got over 19,000 roles approved so far,
right.
And there'll be more coming on board daily. And these opportunities started in November. So you could apply for Kickstart people to be joining your organisation in September, but that also runs all the way through to December next year. So you've got up to a year to employ someone in your business or organisation via Kickstart. Yeah,
as you say, it sounds very expansive and comprehensive. And one of the things, though, that perhaps critics of active labour market policies like this would say is, have the government learnt the lessons of perhaps some of these previous schemes? I mean, I appreciate actually you and I think were still at school when Restart, as it was then called in the 1980s, was around for high unemployment. I mean, has your department sort of learnt the lessons then of some of these other programmes and perhaps some of the shortcomings of them?
Yeah, absolutely. And we daily listen and learn from our work coaches. Our Secretary of State and myself do a regular catch up, going back to the floor, so to speak, to work with our local leaders and our work coaches. And in fact, we are recruiting now. So if anyone's listening and wants to bring some of their skills to DWP, we are recruiting across the country more work coaches. We'll have 13,500 on board by March. We've already got our first wave, and we're still looking for people to come across to us. Absolutely. We know, for example, with the previous incarnation in terms of youth employment, the Future Jobs Fund, that was very focused on local government, local organisations and charities. This one is absolutely that, but more inclusive of businesses as well. We've also been working with local chambers of commerce and the FSB and our LEPs, and you name it, to really shape that opportunity, really listen to local labour market needs and local recovery plans. Yeah,
indeed. I mean, of course, there's no lack of research on actually does what work around these policies. And there's no doubt, catching the challenge early, making sure people who perhaps next March find themselves, 12 months unemployed because of the first lockdown restrictions don't then topple into sort of 2 years and 3 years long-term unemployment, because we know, don't we, Minister, that leaves a sort of scarring effect on local economies.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You will know some people might be furloughed at the moment. Some people may have not gone into that workplace because of the impact on the end of their education or any jobs that they've got lined up that can really knock confidence. And we also know that young people have, smaller networks, less opportunity to get that first foot on the jobs ladder, which is exactly why we've got Kickstart there. And people are really keen to be taking part. What I have heard, certainly from local businesses as well, and in all the engagement that we've done with mayors and all the local authorities, is many of our businesses who've been helped through the pandemic and still not quite sure what the future looks like, but what they do want to do is try and give back to their community, and taking on a young person where they possibly can through the Kickstart scheme is a great way of them helping somebody onto that employment ladder, and they're really keen to do this.
Okay, sounds great. Finally then, you'll appreciate as a former radio presenter how I need to keep to time, otherwise I won't be able to carry on with the next segment of the show. But I just wanted to ask you a final question around really what the role of FE colleges and private training providers could be right now in really supporting you, the department, and of course the job centres around the country.
Well, they really come into the fore, and I want to thank them, Tom, because we are rolling out 100 youth hubs across DWP with our partners, such as FE colleges. So I'll give you an example. We're working in Hastings with the local college, just across from where the new job centre will be, just near the train station. We're absolutely putting a hub in there to bring together all the opportunities for young people, whether it's traineeships, apprenticeships, further education, help on benefits, debt counselling, well-being, and then once they're in that college, then it could potentially open up education once again for that young person. And you'll be aware that the government's absolutely been focused on getting the right support through the National Skills Fund, and in parts of the spending review, obviously there was feedback for DFE. And don't forget, if you're hiring apprenticeships, for example, the incentive scheme there has been expanded through 2021. Absolutely, and we're focused on helping people 25 and over as well. So FE and employment support and everyone coming together to tackle this pandemic and bring their skills and ability and local knowledge for those local recovery plans are key. So I want to thank the FE sector, because you're going to play a huge part in how we reskill and move forward positively.
As you say, plenty of money and support there to work together as a community to get everyone, we hope, through this crisis. Mims Davies, MP, Minister for Employment at the Department for Work and Pensions, thanks so much for coming on Skills World Live, and I look forward to your volunteer stint at some point later on.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
You're listening to the Skills World Live radio show with Tom Bewick.
patience is only ever wearing thin. I've been waiting for something to believe in. Oh, lately I've been feeling down and out. Since I met you, everything is good again. I've been waiting for a lifeline. I've been waiting for a lifeline. Oh, lately I've been feeling down and out. Since I met you, everything is good again. My patience is only ever wearing thin. I've been waiting for something to believe in. I've been waiting for a lifeline. Been looking for the right guy. I've been waiting for a lifeline. I've been waiting for a lifeline. Been looking for the right guy. I've been waiting for a lifeline. Been looking for the right guy. I've been waiting for a lifeline.
I'm conscious we haven't played a track for our loyal hashtag FE workout crowd for some time. Oh yes, we know there's quite a few gym bunnies out there who've told us they always miss listening to the show. Well, they do listen to the show, of course, when they're working out. That track was Lifeline from an uplifting album from the dance crew over at Trance Wax. Okay, let's get cracking then, shall we, with our first in-depth discussion tonight, finding out what college leaders, including principals and governors, really think about the future direction of FE. I'm joined on the line by three pretty distinguished leaders, all individuals who between them have a humongous amount of experience in the sector. Indeed, they will receive gongs of one kind or another. I'm talking, of course, about Dr. Sue Pember over at Holex, Professor Martin Doel of University College London and the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education these days. And last but not least, Dr. Sam Parrett, the CEO and Group Principal of the London South East Education Group. Good evening to you all.
Hello, evening.
Yeah, great to hear. All coming through loud and clear, which is fantastic. Sue, let's come to you first. You've probably worked with more college governors and boards than I've scored runs playing cricket in the back garden with my kids. Why then do you think so many scandals that have rocked colleges in recent years have all raised major questions about the quality of corporation board governance?
Yeah, really good question. I mean, governors, first of all, come there because normally they want to do something good for their community, and they are experts. And over the years, we've got probably more accountants now sitting on governing bodies than probably any other part of any sort of public sector organisation structure. However, FE has become incredibly complex. And it's all related to funding. And when the funding gets tight and the money doesn't go as far as it should go, often governors are the least likely to know that. And therefore, they what they need to have in place is processes and structures that really give them what they need far quicker. And once they know that information, they've got to pass it into the funding agencies. But the bottom line is not everybody's fraudulent or making things difficult. It is because the funding is just not enough to cover what colleges are being expected to do.
Yeah.
And if they sorted the funding, they could probably sort everything else.
Indeed, and we don't pay governors either, and perhaps that's something else we can come on to as part of this discussion. But Martin, let's move on to you as a former AOC chief exec and indeed the first university chair in FE to be appointed by UCL. I mean, no one can accuse you of not thinking and writing a very deep canon of thoughts about the FE sector. But a lot of the tensions I see around the sector today appear to hinge around this concept of what the College of the Future Commission calls system-level leadership in terms of where accountability, autonomy and delivery should lie. It's not particularly a new debate, though, is it?
No, I don't think it is, Tom. And, more relevant to perhaps the conversation is the fact I've just chaired, as an interim chair, 2 colleges in some difficulties. So if we get round to the conversation to Sue's point before, it'd be interesting to pick up on that perhaps. But I mean, systems level leadership is an interesting concept. If it's a complex system, and inevitably the sort of systems that colleges inhabit are complex because they're both local and national, they span a wide age range. The range of curriculum's huge. The number of partners they interact with are huge. I fail to be convinced that you can lead a system like that. You can lead within a system.
Yeah,
and I think it's interesting to consider what characteristics you need to lead within a system in order to help make it function most effectively, because one person can't lead that system.
Yeah, well, there's certainly some thought around that potentially one system, one person, particularly at a regional level, might be able to lead a system of colleges. But again, we'll come back to that in the discussion.
Let's fundamentally disagree. So
well, let's explore that, because obviously there's a lot of different views around just on that point alone. Sam, lots of speculation, as you know, about the FE white paper. It looks like from the reports I'm reading from the Public Accounts Committee that's definitely now going to be delayed until the new year, but we'll see. But reading the runes, though, college principals like you and governing boards like the one you sit on will potentially have less autonomy in future and more of a sort of prescribed product list from the centre in terms of qualifications, for example, that you offer. So again, does that sound appealing to you as a leader in your own field?
Well, I think I'm keeping an open mind about all things white paper, to be fair, Tom, at the moment, because what we know about the FE sector is that we are, without doubt, the most flexible, adaptive aspect of the education system. And I think, the dynamic capability and adaptability that we've shown over many years, not just over this last 9 months of COVID, is clearly given government great confidence that the sector can and will adapt to whatever changes, we're going to be facing. So I think we can't speculate about those. But, for many, many years, colleges have been strong anchor institutions in their local community. So I think, the work of the College Commission and others is just really reflecting how many colleges, notwithstanding, the issues that both Sue and Martin have raised, have been able to successfully navigate their way through a complex system.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about obviously speculating about what's in the white paper when it is eventually published, but there's no doubt, as part of the usual lobbying and influencing that goes on from a whole, number of peak level bodies, including the Association of Colleges, there are reports out there that suggest that actually we're headed towards more of a nationalised system of colleges and technical education. I mean, Martin, you said you would disagree with that. Why?
I think that the fundamental issue, Tom, it's not even just one system, it's a system of systems. A modern economy is extraordinarily complicated and moves exceptionally quickly. I mean, the last 9 months tell us that. And you need to liberate people to operate very quickly and responsively within that system. If you have a top-down attempt at directing the whole of the system in detail, as we may have done more closely, be able to do that in a simpler life before, perhaps in 50 years ago, I think you're just doomed to failure. You'll always be doing things just after they need to be done, or just the wrong things at the wrong time. So I think that a framework for action, a sense of direction, and an overall sense of what's required is important, but actually trying to direct in detail, and people generally fall into that if you appoint someone to run the whole system, is, I think, destined for failure in a modern economy.
So, Sue, why then has this proposal of regional chairs, albeit perhaps appointed by a group of colleges, why does it appear to have so much legs then? It's basically mirroring the multi-academy trust model, isn't it, in schools, where you've got a regional schools commissioner that ultimately answers to the Secretary of State.
Yeah, I mean, it's not quite the same, is it? Because the regional schools commissioners are DfE officials, and the chief exec of academy trusts are often, not based in any locality, because their schools are actually quite national. So I don't think there is an analogy with maths
Right.
myself. That's the first thing. The second thing is that having a tier a new tier in a very crowded space. We've already got combined authorities are doing planning for FE. We've already got the paid for skills plans being done by LEPs. We've already got councils with a statutory responsibility for 16 to 19 to make sure there's a place for everybody. So we actually got quite a crowded landscape there. And it certainly doesn't work for my members, which are adult and community education providers, to think that there's a duty on colleges to set up a network. That doesn't seem to be quite the right place to put that. A duty to collaborate just seems a bit odd to me, but collaboration is a sort of frame of mind, isn't it? You want to work with people.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have a statutory responsibility for it. And whether it's got legs or not, I don't know. In Wales, when they did their college mergers, they thought they'd end up with a regional structure, a regional body working to the Secretary of State. I don't think that's quite happened yet. So it's very difficult when we've got half the country now devolved for adult funding and half the country not devolved, but there's going to be a devolution white paper, so we don't know what's in that, to think of a new landscape. However, there is something there. Colleges may be better off collaborating. But now, I mean, if you look at the geography now, there's often just one choice of college. Chichester, isn't it? Manages Crawley, things like that. It's not like you've got a lot of choice. So do you really need another level of bureaucracy?
Yeah. I mean, Sam, you're obviously already running a group of colleges. No one's, I'm sure, sitting above you telling you to do that. So coming back to Martin's point, and indeed even some of Sue's scepticism then, I mean, where are you on this continuum of sort of autonomy versus being told what to do from the centre?
Yeah, so we run a group of schools as well. So I'm the chief exec of a multi-academy trust of 8 schools, as well as our 4 colleges. So reasonably well placed. Comment on that, Tom. And I think, when we think about the policy making that sits behind any of these strategies, whether it's around schools working collaboratively or colleges working collaboratively or the wider sector, I think, much of the policy making that we, operate within, does tend to ignore some of the bigger picture issues. And it's often sort of, single causal issues that mean that, we ignore the complexity of the landscape. And that's, I think, why sometimes policy that we operate with, lacks a complete solution. But for us, we operate with what we call an earned autonomy model of governance within our schools and our colleges. And I think what we found is that there's a lot to be learned from schools and the way they operate and are governed, and vice versa from colleges into schools. So, I'm comfortable working in, a regulatory environment in which there is clarity around our purpose, in which some of the aspects of the system that, are labelled FE leaders and governance, failure terms such as funding, qualification systems. I'm optimistic, once those things are evaluated and clearly changes on the way in all of those aspects, we respond appropriately with strong leadership and governance and manage within those systems. So I think we're comfortable with what's coming.
Yeah, but given that you do run then a multi-academy trust, and indeed, Martin, so please chip in on this thought, on this debate. I mean, I was quite surprised when I read a story about how a regional schools commissioner was attempting to overrule the decision of a head of a multi-academy trust who had decided, due to operational reasons, that they were planning to close the school earlier, for the Christmas holidays. And frankly, if they didn't then, agree to that, they were going to be grassed up to the minister, apparently, or to, senior officials. I mean, isn't that really the point here about if you allow a sort of system to creep in where you've got, whether it's regional tiers or system level leadership sort of tiers of management, ultimately you're going to create a hierarchy, aren't you? And people who are further down that hierarchy are going to feel that they have to take the orders from those at the top. I mean, is that, am I just being unkind here to that set of proposals, or is that really what's going on?
I think there's a key issue here, Tom. If you don't trust people to interpret what's required and why, I mean, it's important for ministers to say why they're asking people to do things, and then people to intelligently interpret it at their level. If ministers begin to direct in this way, they become accountable, and the individuals become accountable. And once that accountability relationship disappears, then I think you're on a slippery slope. People just hide behind the next person in the chain and don't take responsibility for their actions. I mean, the other thing that kind of bears on this, I think, Tom, is goes right back to Sue's point. So much in FE is complicated, but we make things more complicated for ourselves. One of the things I think in Sam's group will be that each of those institutions that she leads within the group have a very clearly defined purpose, and there's differentiation being made between each of those institutions, and they understand what they do and they don't do. One of the things I think governing bodies could make life easier for themselves in colleges, and actually applies to all organisations, is to better reflect on what they're for, who they're for, and why they do things. So define their purpose, and in defining their purpose, define what they won't do. Then that will allow others to better collaborate with them, because they can see what distinctive contribution they can make together, rather than being in competition in areas which are not helpful. So the duty to collaborate, I think, is really quite problematic, but the requirement for boards of colleges and others to really give close attention to defining clearly and with a great deal of care what they're for and who they're for and their purpose, I think, is something that's fundamental.
Yeah. So there you go then, Sue. Let's just create a high trust model of further education colleges. You sit on a lot of interview panels. Let's start getting from the market real, leaders, real proven track record of performance in terms of delivering to learners and their local community. Let's start paying chairs of governors, and again, get the right people, the right calibre of people around the boards. I mean, that would solve a lot of the issues, wouldn't it?
Well, probably not.
Why not?
I've done quite a lot of work looking at should we pay governors. We've looked at the hospitals, we've looked at the police and the police commissioners, and we've looked at where it has happened in other countries. And what you end up with often is not people who understand their community or leaders in that community who know what buttons to press. You end up with serial board people who are mainly consultants because they've got the time to do it. It's not a good working model, the payment. However, I do believe that boards should be representative in a way, that they should have more women on there. They need to have students on there, and they need to make sure that people who've got expertise can get to those meetings. So paying for childcare and things like that, but actually paying for the board member. And then you will get some people who, because the amount of money won't be huge, it gets in the way of all sorts of their employment, their tax forms, the rest of it, and those type of people then can't be bothered. So it's not as clear cut as people think. Throwing money at this is not the solution. The solution for me is make it a system that they can manage. This shouldn't be as difficult as it is. And going back to Martin's point, he's absolutely right. People need to know what they're responsible for. And you give that example of the Academy Trust. One of the things academies, it was sold to academies, they would be able to set their own term times. Well, they obviously can't, can they? So
no, they have to align with local authorities in more cases.
Yeah,
than not,
and absolutely now, those governors on those maps will be wondering, well, what next? Does it mean we can't set the hours of the day? Does it mean that we can't give that extra hour or buy that computer? What next is going to be a diktat from government, from central government? So to me, we need to simplify it all. We need to make sure there's enough funding so everybody can operate in a proper environment.
Okay.
And then we need to make sure that people are given some empowerment to get on with it.
Right.
Tom,
Okay. Go on, Martin.
Sam having a word, but on this payment issue, I'm probably not with Sue. I don't know that all chairs of all colleges ought to be paid, or indeed not all board members. But I do think there are occasions when the chair could usefully be paid, and I think that is happening on occasions. More important, perhaps, though, is the way in which chairs are appointed. This is, I think, probably if we went through a public appointments process for the chair of colleges, then I think we can get around Sue's concern about not being responsible to place, to find the right person for the appointment. And I think a relatively small amount of money can attract the right candidate and actually make them more accountable as the chair. And having done it in 2 colleges in difficulty, I can attest to how much time it does take up and how exposed you are in doing that role. And I do think that some payment for that is not unreasonable, but most importantly, the means by which the person's appointed, I think, is important.
Okay. Now, look, I want to get final thoughts on this topic, and it is a difficult one, and in a sense, the 30 seconds I can give to you each to give me an answer doesn't really do it justice. But you'll know there's a lot of debate and discussion in the sector at the moment about diversity and inclusion, particularly following the events in America over the summer. And indeed, we've even had the formation of the FE Black Leadership Group, and indeed, we're going to have a whole episode looking at those issues in a couple of weeks' time. But as senior leaders in the sector, what do you think really FE colleges and the system as a whole needs to be doing to really boost black leadership, but also diversity in general? Sam, let's start with you.
Well, I think the first thing that everybody should be doing is adopting the 10-point plan that the Black Further Education Leadership Group have put out there. They're absolutely correct that this needs to be first and central on all our board agendas and all our corporate agendas. And we challenge ourselves on a daily basis, at all our board meetings to ensure that our staff community represents our student community, that our profile represents our local community, and we continue to challenge ourselves to ensure that the glass ceilings and the perceptions are removed. And I think with the toolkits that they're bringing out and the benchmarking, and the priority we're all now giving this, we will as a sector make this, absolutely foregrounded on all of our agendas. So I think the profile that we are now giving to ensuring greater equality and inclusion can only be a good thing, because it speaks to the values of our sector.
All right, Sue, your thoughts?
Yeah, and very similar. I think we've all got personal responsibility to call out things when we see they're not right. I think that's incredibly important. And I think probably in the past, people have not done that as much as they should. And I think we also should be about raising aspirations. So, young staff, we need to mentor them. We need to bring them on. We need to make sure, we need to do, personally get involved in that so that we can help people get onto the next run of their career. And more importantly, I think we do need to be educators and use the rest of our networks with employers or the community to support them when they're struggling with these issues. And again, call it out. If we're working with an employer and they've never, ever, appointed somebody from a diverse background, we need to ask why. Yeah,
absolutely. Martin Doel, give us your 20-second thoughts.
Well, the easy answer is to say more, but you shouldn't just say more in a way that's window dressing. It needs to be more substantive than that and not a tick box exercise. So absolutely, as Sam and Sue have said, it's got to be taken personally and taken individually and taken as a group. I'm probably more optimistic, not least after the initiatives that have now been taken within the sector by the Black Leadership Group. I think, as Sam says, it is integral to the values within this sector to respect the aspirations and give everyone a fair chance.
Yeah.
I think that we probably could, and I don't want to be over-optimistic, become leaders in education in this space, given the opportunity to do that and given the right leadership, which is now appearing. So on an optimistic note, I think everything in the sector can be done and should be done. But as I say, not for window dressing or cosmetically, but real and deep.
Well, part of finding a solution in life is always firstly about recognising there's indeed a challenge, and I think we'd all accept that we've got a lot of work to do in that area. Professor Martin Doel, Dr. Sue Pember and Dr. Sam Parrett, thanks so much for joining the programme this evening. Great debate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Bye.
You're listening to the Skills World Live radio show with Tom Bewick.
Partners works across the UK education and skills sector to transform leadership and inspire societal change. We do this through executive search, recruitment, and board development services. If your organisation requires support to appoint great leaders through a thorough and national search campaign, or perhaps your board has a skills gap which needs filling, contact Peridot for an informal discussion about how we can help you. We love what we do, and we do it with passion. So search online for Peridot Partners or email education@peridotpartners.co.uk.
Before the ad break, you heard the classic track from that original boy band from the English Midlands, Duran Duran, and a track that peaked at number 5 in July 1981, talking of course about girls on film. Now let's move on to the final live phone chat segment of the evening. I'm joined by the CEO of Nelson and Colne College Group, who was also one of the commissioners for the College of the Future. I'm referring to Amanda Melton. Good evening, Amanda.
Hi there, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Great to get you back on the show as well. Now, joining Amanda and myself in this three-way discussion is Fiona Chalk, who is Head of Governance Development at the Education and Training Foundation. I understand she only gives us a few minutes because she's just discovered she's got to go live because she's won an award. Good evening, Fiona.
Good evening, Tom. Thank you.
Yeah. What's the award?
That, wasn't it?
Yeah. Tell us all about the award.
I was very kindly nominated and then shortlisted by the ICA, which is the Chartered Governance Institute, for a new category they've got, which is Governance Champion of the Year. So, yeah, I've just received an email to say I've actually won, so quite amazed.
Fantastic. Well,
and it was quite a
congratulations from all the listeners to Skills World Live. Great. Now, look, if you heard my exchange with Susan Pember earlier, you'll know that I asked about the quality of governance. What changes then, in your view, do you think we need to make to college governance to make it both more effective and more accountable to local communities?
Well, that's a very good question, isn't it? About, what is good governance or what is effective governance? And I think, governors have three lines of sight, don't they? They have hindsight, which is their past performance, audit committee, compliance, etc. They have oversight, which is, where are we now compared to where we thought we should be? What's happened, what needs to change, and then foresight, that lovely question about what do we want to be when we grow up.
It's a very neat way of describing it.
I think probably typically we would say that boards have maybe spent perhaps 60% of their time looking on hindsight and oversight. I think we now have a great opportunity to move on to the foresight and be more strategic. I think from the conversations I've had with, governors, CEOs, they're all keen for the boards to be strategic. I think boards have more to offer value-wise by being strategic rather than policing, although that is, a key role. But I think, it's focusing on strategy, learning how to be strategic, and how we implement that and understanding how boards can add value, which obviously a lot comes down to that knowledge exchange that takes place in the boardroom, that key relationship between the board and senior leadership team, working that out, particularly under difficult circumstances that we're in now, is really key to moving governance forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can see why you've won an award this evening. Now, Amanda, you've been part of the UK and indeed the England Commission report that has just made some significant recommendations about the future of colleges. The need to move to 3-year funding agreements for FE, lots of support for that. The idea of statutory right to lifelong learning. Bloody hell, I've been writing about that for years. But perhaps where there's been more controversy is the notion of some, going back to actually to Fiona's point about the oversight thing, this idea of someone sitting above either an institutional college principal, group of principals as this sort of system level leadership, regional chairs point. I mean, you run a college group already, but do you think a principal running a large single FE college rated outstanding for its provision will perhaps react adversely to that sort of proposal?
I don't think that's quite what the proposal suggests. I think what the proposal suggests is that across a kind of functional economic area, colleges need to be able to work out what the businesses and the individuals and the towns need in that area, and then make sure that they collaborate in order to be able to do it. So I think it's more to do, it's certainly not about taking autonomy away from colleges, and that's not the suggestion at all. And, it's definitely not about kind of being beaten up from the centre. It's more to do with the systems level leadership that Martin was talking about, which enables people to be able to design what the further education landscape needs to look like across that area themselves. So for me, it's very strongly about people getting on the front foot, working out what the investment plan is for that area, working out what the industrial need is for that area, and then being able to make sure that they can align to that. So, it's certainly not about putting in another tier or another layer for me. I mean, I think I'm also involved in a multi-academy trust, and it's not an unhelpful thing, insofar as a multi-academy trust adds value where it needs to add value, where you've got, you need to put in some more money, or you need to put in some more kind of strategic support around quality improvement or whatever. But ultimately, as Sam said earlier, you have this kind of earned autonomy model that lives in a multi-academy trust. But most importantly, I think here we're talking about autonomous institutions that are behind a plan for an area and behind what the investment needs to be in that area.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And someone that's been in the sector nearly 30 years myself, I've gone through various incarnations. We had localised training enterprise councils, and we had a more kind of central planning role through 47 regional learning and skills councils. I remember the time when we had the strategic area review. So again, there's nothing particularly new, is there, about this central challenge about how do you get greater collaboration, how do you get more coordination, how do you make sure that local communities' skills needs are met? But it still sort of comes back, I think, to this central challenge, isn't it? Is in the end, how do we get more trust into the system so that people feel they can collaborate, they can coordinate without necessarily having to go back to the centre, back to Whitehall and ask for permission?
Yeah, I suppose that, part of the issue around the trust thing has been that, it's been a difficult period of time financially for colleges, and they've had to, weave new methods to be able to make themselves more and more financially viable and sustainable and so on. So, this complexity that I was hearing somebody talking about earlier is very much linked to the idea that actually, you've got to be, able to make ends meet kind of thing. So we've got to have a longer term funding. We've got to have a greater kind of investment in the sector so that we don't end up in that position, and so that actually we can make sure that when we are making capital investment, revenue investments in an area, that they're going to be fulfilled. I don't agree that you need another whole load of development agency type tiers of people that do kind of central control. I completely think that if you get good systems leadership from within the further education sector itself, then it can work out what its area needs.
Fiona, final word to you then, because you've got to go off soon anyway and collect your reward. If there were sort of 3 or 4 things that you would expect to see the white paper, whenever indeed it does arrive, say about further education governance, then what sort of things would you expect to see in there?
I'm a great believer on the wagon train strategy. When they used to get wagons across the plains for the gold rush, used to send scouts up to the front, find out what was going well and bring it back to the middle and say, well, if you implement some of these principles or policies, we can all go a bit faster. And I think there's some fantastic work already being done in this area in the sector. Yeah. And obviously through ETF, that's what we try to promote. It's supporting the self-improving system. So what I would want to see would be an opportunity around governance for people to take the time, look at what's going well and actually build on that rather than perhaps some diktat from above. I think we've all lived through the area review process and new governance structures there where I think we felt we were a bit on the back foot. It would be good to get ahead of time, look at what's going on well and really build on that already.
Indeed. Let's build back better, perhaps. Anyway, that's all we've got time for on tonight's show. But Fiona Chalk, who's National Head of Governance Development at the Education and Training Foundation, and of course Amanda Melton, CBE, CEO of Nelson and Colne College Group, and was a commissioner for the College of the Future. Thanks so much for taking the time joining the show this evening. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're listening to the Skills World Live radio show with Tom Bewick.
Another fascinating show, folks. Thanks to all our wonderful guests, and gratitude as ever to our editor Gavin O'Mara and the fabulous Ellie Hansen, our digital producer. Do tell your friends about the show and get them to subscribe. Leaving you now with this remix from Lane 8 featuring Solomon Gray. Wonderful musicians, definitely worth adding to your playlists. Whatever corona tier you're in next week, 1, 2 or 3, stay safe and I'll see you soon.
Remember to subscribe to Skills World Live at fenews.co.uk or just download the show from any one of your favourite podcasting sites, including iTunes, Spotify and Spreaker. Your world, Skills World.